This is a speaking test of the International English Testing System taking place today, Wednesday the 13th of February. The candidate is Daniela Sanchez. The examiner is Lucia. Good afternoon, I'm the speaker today that will undertake your speaking test. My name is Lucia. How should I call you? Hi, Daniela is just fine. Could you please show me any kind of ID that confirms your identity? Oh yeah, sure, here it is. Alright, let's start. On the first section of this test, I will ask you some questions about yourself. You just answer naturally. Well, that sounds great. And Daniela, tell me, where are you from? Well, I am from Guadalajara, which is a city in Mexico. It's in the southern part. Oh, how wonderful. I just love Mexico, especially its beaches. Oh yeah, they're one of a kind. The light sand, the warm sea, and just the weather. Definitely the best beaches out there are in Mexico. Do you have any hobbies? Oh yeah, for starters, I love reading. I found it profoundly entertaining and enriching. Watching football and basketball are also pastimes I am very fond of. And lastly, well, music. I've been playing piano and guitar for about 4 years now. Oh, how interesting. And what's your favorite book? Well, I don't have one in particular, but one of my all-time favorites is Crime and Punishment. I read it for my AP Literature class last year. And what makes that book one of your all-time favorites? It's such a complex work of art. Philosophy, literature, history, all mashed up in a single masterpiece. At the time that I read it, it was extremely significant, mostly because it offered me a whole new perspective that proved different meanings anything could have. And how exactly did you get into sports? Well, I basically just grew up watching football. My dad is a hard-die fan as well, so inevitably I became a passionate fan. Do you have a big family? Well, I have one sister, but from my mother's side, I do have an extended family. I have about 40 cousins, so the family reunions do get out of hand. Oh wow, I asked this because it is a very Mexican thing, right? A sort of cliche, big families. What can you say about the Mexican culture? Well, it is a very bright and colorful culture, and every festivity you'll find colors, and a very enthusiastic spirit and party mood. For instance, the Day of the Death holiday celebrates all your loved ones who have passed away, and it's kind of ironic celebrating the death as if they were alive. Only Mexicans can find this humor in the darkest places. And that reflects just how we are, a happy culture that, despite its rough political history, is always finding ways to celebrate. If you could change one thing about your country, what would it be? I would change our politicians and political culture. Some people are very ignorant when it comes to politics. If they tend to vote at all, they just vote for the populace that promises the impossible lifestyles without any decent or coherent explanation. Politics in Mexico have a history of being extremely corrupt and arranged. So yeah, there's that. But aside from all that, I love my country and my culture. Oh, how interesting. Well, that concludes the first section of this speaking test. Now we'll move along to the next part. I'll give you a task card so you can talk about a particular topic. You have 1 minute to prepare and make notes if you wish about the topic. And then you'll have to speak from 1 to 2 minutes about it. I'll give you your paper and your pencil so that you can write the notes if you so wish to do so. And here's the topic. So some people think that only the government can make significant changes in society, while others think that individuals can have a lot of influence. I'd like for you to voice your opinion on it. In democracies such as Mexico, the UK, United States, and most other countries, the people are the source of power to the government. And that's what government is all about, right? Power. By meaning only, you could say democracies are the people and not the other way around. Some people may feel insignificant in such a wide spectrum, thinking that their voice or vote is absolutely worthless. But I differ from that. In fact, I believe that as citizens, our duty and obligation is to be active and participate in every single way possible. Of course, the government has the bigger platform, and in most cases, the final decision. In cases of tyranny, they may control and manipulate the media and information, and in that case, it is harder for society to get a grasp on change, but it can be done. Changes have been achieved by society in numerous ways: marches, by boycotting, protests, and so on. But to reach this milestone, everybody must participate, and that is exactly the complexity of having a social impact, of being able to achieve it. Both the government and society have a deep influence regarding change. The difference is that the government has an almost direct access to it. Meanwhile, for society, it requires a lot more effort and numbers. And in recent years, do you have any memory of marches or protests that have actually achieved any change? Well, right now, the perfect example would be Venezuela. You may be aware of the oppressive dictatorship by their tyrant president, Maduro. Last year, elections were held, and he proclaimed himself president even though his voting numbers only accounted for less than 20% of Venezuela's population. The law there establishes that in this specific case, or cases like this, there must be an interim president that will be in power until new elections are summoned so the new president that accounts for more than 20% of votes is elected. But of course, the president ignored every single law. And giant numbers of population went out to the street and protested. And they have gained international attention, and they already count with the US approval and support. And in your country, have you ever experienced any kind of tyranny? We had a dictator about a century ago called Porfirio Diaz. He did control every single aspect of everyone's lives. But he did achieve economical progress and brought many modernities to a rather underdeveloped country as Mexico was in the early 20th century. I understand the history of Mexico is very rich. What do you think makes it that bright? Well, everything. And dating back to Hispanic civilizations, our roots are very palpable. Their everyday life was full of colors and festivities. They tried to honor every single thing while laughing at it, even death. Their structures were also brilliant. Their mechanics and process marked history. If you see the monuments, they are breathtaking. They leave you in utter awe. Every single construction was deeply calculated. And that is remarkable, given that they lived isolated from the Western culture that inhabited a modern Europe. For me, those cultures, the Hispanic cultures, are the ones that gave us our authenticity and identity. And what exactly do you think gives identity to a culture? Well, for me, it's all about ethnicity, the language, religion, values, and spirit. Of course, diversity is also a part of it, but every single culture has its own specific way of living. Traditions. What gives a culture its identity or personality, as you could say, would be the similarities found between a group and the sentiment of belonging there proudly. Of the different cultures in Mexico, just how many can be found? Well, as a whole, we're a very homogeneous society, but some differences do exist, especially by ranking social classes. And generally, this discrimination is also associated by appearance. Dark-skinned people are more likely to be a target of this offense. But overall, we are a mixed society. And why do you think this discrimination exists? You could summarize it with one word, which is hate. It's the fear and resentment towards a specific group of people that are generally marginated. It is a tremble against the unknown, the supremacy of ignorance. the closed minds that refuse diversity and acceptance. It is a wronged ideology that pushes people away and drives them further into their black hole. Is discrimination seen in politics? Oh, certainly. The most common type of discrimination seen in that field is gender related. For the most part of history, we have lived under a patriarchal system that doesn't encourage women or didn't encourage women to take control of their own futures. So many people feel threatened and intimidated, and they just try to avoid women's interest into politics. They will rather for them to just stick to domestic tasks. But times are changing. And nowadays, there are more open-minded people than ever before. Of course, it is still challenging and it will continue to be that way. But some progress has been made and progress will come as well. Well, that just concludes our test. Thank you for entering in the International English Testing System. And well, you just have to wait for your final grades. Thank you.